I'm very happy to introduce you to one of the professors at IIT Bombay. He's a professor in the electrical engineering department, Professor Madhav Desai. He actually has designed an algorithm to hardware compilation tool named Ahir, and he has also designed a microprocessor named Ajit. And this processor was developed using the Ahir tools. So he will actually be talking about them also. So over to you, sir.
I just put on my video to say hello and then I'll put it off. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Okay. I'll be speaking about the importance of verification in electronic system design because I think that is the theme. That is a theme that is getting increasingly important. So, if you look at the challenges in electronic system design today, in today's world, the first major challenge is, of course, complexity. Systems are getting more and more complex as we go forward. All of you are aware that, the CMOS manufacturing technology scales every couple of years. So today, for example, you can build a circuit with on silicon. You can build a circuit with 1,000 million logic gates without too much. I mean, it's become sort of standard now. So if you want, whether you're designing these circuits or whether you're using these circuits, you have to face the complexity problem. There's lots of things to worry about. The second challenge in electronic system design is rapid technological change, because not only is the manufacturing technology feature size scaling, and it scales at regular intervals, but there are a lot of new technologies coming into the electronic system space. For example, you have ferromagnetic memories, you have quantum dots, you have carbon nanotubes. There's a lot of new technology slowly getting into the space. So you need to be able to work with this new technology. And the third thing is, you can design an electronic system, but if you want to manufacture it, the manufacture is quite expensive. So you cannot spend that money unless you have sufficiently verified the system that you have built. The cost of failure is too high. Cost in terms of money, in terms of rupees, also in terms of time. If you make a mistake and you find out that you have made a mistake too late in life, then you're going to spend a lot of time, and that's one thing nobody has anymore. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we are designing more complex systems. There are more unknowns every time because of technological change. But in addition to that, the cost of a mistake is way too high. So that means that you really need to spend a lot of effort on verifying your system before you actually build it. So the importance of software tools is immediate, right? If you can model the system in software and verify it to a great extent in software, you can have pretty high confidence that your system will work as expected after it is manufactured. So now when you talk about electronic systems, actually there are several different classes. I'm sort of going to mention three important classes. The first is, you essentially purely digital systems, like, microprocessors, or, telecom equipment, or say DSP equipment. So mainly they represent information in the digital domain and process it in the digital domain. Now, these are the circuits that are really large. So for example, if you take your cell phone and you look at the chip, look at the processor in the cell phone, it's likely to be a quad core or an octa core processor, which will have close to 1 billion logic gates. So it's a very complex system, and it has its own challenges for verification. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it in relation to our project that we just finished. We have been not finished, actually, we're still working on it. The microprocessor that we have built. Now that's a circuit with about 1 million logic gates. but even that took a substantial verification effort in order to get it right. Okay, the second traditional class is what are called analog systems, where the information is not digitized. It's basically a real number, if you like, the uh, voltage across a capacitor, or the current through an inductor, unmanipulated, and so on. So such systems are find a lot of use in sensors, in instrumentation, in radio frequency circuits, high-speed communication, actuator control, data conversion circuits. In effect, whenever you deal with the outside world, whenever you deal with the real world, the natural world, you have to really have an analog system dealing with it, because you are really, it's not yet, the information is not digitized yet. So of course, if you look at practical systems, the third class is very common, which is mixed signal. Mixed signal means in that system, both analog signals as well as digital signals are being produced, processed, and and uh, and sensed. So typically, such systems have an analog front end with an ADC or a to D converter or D to A converter, or a combination of the two, together with a digital back end. Essentially, you have maybe a microprocessor or microcontroller, or a DSP block, or what have you. So you basically convert the analog information, the real world information, to digitized information, which you then process. And then when you send that information out to the real world, you again convert it back to the analog domain. Another thing that's happening is more and more is, you design an analog circuit, but you use the digital circuit, you use a digital circuit to control it, to tune it, for example, or to calibrate it. And the third point is that the most important analog circuits today are the data conversion circuits, which convert from the analog domain to digital and vice versa. Okay, so typically, if you look at many systems today, if you look at a microcontroller, I was just overhearing the earlier talk. You have a microcontroller. Most microcontrollers have at least one ADC incorporated, and sometimes a DAC also. So, basically, they are already mixed signal systems. Okay, so now I'm going to just talk about, let's look at the digital. If I'm designing a digital system, what are the different stages which the design goes through, and the sort of corresponding verification that the design goes through. So, for example, if you look at this picture, on the left hand side, I have a column of 4 boxes. Basically, it's chronological. So we started off by writing a C model for the processor. So that becomes a specification. So, we write the C model to make sure you have understood what the processor should do. And of course, we check our understanding by running lots of tests. So you see the box on the right, that's the tests. So these are tests which basically are used to confirm that whatever you're building is okay. The first thing we confirm that is okay is the specification. Then we take the specification, and from the specification, we generate what we call a algorithmic model. It's a high-level model which describes the internal details of the processor. Then once you have the high-level model, of course, I can't just write the model, I have to also verify it. So the same tests are used to verify the high-level model. And once you are happy with the high-level model, we basically generate a VHDL model, which is done using some tools that we have developed at IIT Bombay itself. These are also open source tools. So you can just write the high-level model and generate a VHDL design. And of course, then that VHDL design needs to be checked on the same tests, right? And once you are sort of happy with the VHDL, you sort of go and put it on an FPGA, because that way we can run even more complex tests. So for example, we can boot the Linux operating system, or we can run long-running tests. So, and essentially when we have sufficiently verified the FPGA model, at that point we say, okay, we can actually manufacture the chip. So this entire process has taken us about 5 years, which is not abnormal, because the circuit is complex. It has to go through various verification stages. We cannot afford to make a mistake. Yeah. So what are the tools that are required here? If you look at it, the tools are, of course, C compiler and Linux. You need a basic software environment to check the models out at the upper layers. Once you have a VHDL model, you need a VHDL simulator. And to use FPGAs, you need FPGA synthesis tools and migration to the circuit board. Most of these are open source. C compiler, we use GCC, it's open source. VHDL simulator, you have GHDL, open source. For FPGA synthesis tools, unfortunately, we have to use proprietary tools because there are a few FPGAs on which open source tools are available, but on the larger ones, they are not yet usable. But however, FPGA synthesis tools are quite economical. They're not very expensive. Anyway, so that's the sort of a digital flow. So you can see that you're going from more abstract to more concrete, and as you move, you keep verifying. Now, what about analog systems? Analog circuits are very different because uh, essentially the circuit size is not very large, but the circuit behavior is complicated because you are actually using transistors, resistors, capacitors, inductors, diodes, bipolar transistors, and so on. So they have complex behaviors in the sense of they are described by algebraic differential equations. So trying when you connect them up, what to figure out what's going to happen, you need a pretty sophisticated simulation setup. So typically so you are designing the circuit, but typically you will have to use models for your devices, for the transistors, resistors, capacitors, inductors, which you take the models, you take your circuit that you need to verify, supply these both pieces of information to the simulation engine, which, for example, I want to mention two of them. One is ngSpice, which is open source, and the other is Sequel, which has been developed at IIT Bombay by Professor Mahesh Patil. So, you have essentially a choice of simulation engines, and you need to have models. And typically, the models are expressed in equations, but they can also be expressed in terms of tables. I think that's a unique feature of Sequel, for example. So you take the models typically prepared by somebody else, but if you are developing a new device, you can write your own model. You supply that model to the simulation engine together with the circuit. The simulation engine produces the resulting waveforms and so on, from which you can extract information and feed it back into the circuit, so that basically you modify the circuit or tune the circuit, or right. So it's not as complicated a process, but it is a very tricky process because of the nature of the devices. Okay. Now, if you look at the last class, which is both together, you want to design a system which it's a mixed signal system. So it has an analog environment which is dealing with the real world, and it has a digital environment which is processing information generated from the real world. So typically, if you want to verify something like this, you will need actually two types of simulators. You'll need a simulator which can handle the digital description, basically a VHDL or Verilog simulator. For example, GHDL, it's a very nice open source simulator. And on the analog side, you need a mechanism by which you need basically something which can solve those model equations and the circuit equations. So you need something like ngSpice. But then the two have to talk to each other. So you need a mechanism by which they can talk to each other. So a typical mechanism is event based. So you essentially have the digital model running in parallel with the analog model, and the two are generating events for each other. So for example, the analog model might be simulating the clock. So when the clock changes from 0 to 1, that information is sent to the digital model, which then calculates the response of the logic circuit to the clock's change from 0 to 1, and supplies the new values of the digital outputs to this analog simulator, which then uses those outputs to continue computing the computing the circuit behavior. So this is a sort of an elegant and relatively simple mechanism to simulate the two things together. This is called co-simulation, and eSIM provides that capability. And I have been associated with the development of eSIM. I've been sort of following it, and it's a very powerful way to model something like this. And especially in the industrial electronics field, I think the earlier talk was also talking about it. The digital environment might be just a microcontroller, microprocessor. The analog environment might be switches, actuators, sensors, and so on and so forth. So you can model those, you can model the code that the microcontroller runs, and actually you can get a soft verification of your entire system before you actually go and build it. And that's especially as the system gets more complex, the work that you do in this domain will be rewarded considerably. Okay. So summary. So what I'm trying to say here is that design is no longer a serious concern for most people. I mean, most serious system developers. I mean, okay, you can design. The question is, can you verify? If you can't verify, then the design is worthless. So that is why any serious work must first fix the verification strategy. So what do you mean by verification strategy? It means basically how are you going to verify? So for example, if I go back, this strategy of in our Ajit processor thing, that was our strategy, saying, hey, we'll first develop a C model, we'll make sure it's okay. Then we'll write an A model, we'll make sure it is okay. Then we will generate the VHDL model, make sure it is okay. Then we'll put it on the FPGA and make sure it is okay. And along the way, on the right-hand side, in the middle, those arrows, we'll make sure that we have all the technology that we need. We have the C compiler, Linux, we have a VHDL simulator, we have FPGA synthesis tools. And most importantly, we have the Ahir V2 tools. You have a strategy, and remember that the digital, analog, and mixed signal verification require different strategies. And in order to plan and execute the strategy, you must know your verification tools and use them effectively. And if you can do that, then you have a much higher chance of success than not only as an employee, but also as an innovator in the electronic system space. So I think that's all I had to say. If there are some questions, I will take them.
Thank you, Madhav sir. So that was actually a very informative talk, and I think our participants would have really enjoyed it. Participants, do you have any queries? Please ask them.
Sir, how algorithmic model gets verified in the system design?
You're referring to this picture?
Yes, sir.
So for example, I mean, I'll speak in relation with the microprocessor. So the C model basically describes how the microprocessor is supposed to execute a program. Okay. So basically in the C model, we describe the algorithm of the microprocessor, which is what does the microprocessor do? It fetches an instruction, it decodes it, executes it, modifies its state, and then fetches the next instruction, correct?
Yes, sir.
So basically that's your model. And how will you test such a model? How will you verify such a model? Well, first you make sure that all the instructions, it can actually execute the instructions as they are expected to be executed, isn't it? So you basically write programs. The tests are programs. You write a program which can exercise this instruction and that instruction. And so there may be 80 instructions or 100 instructions. And each instruction can have various outcomes. Like for example, an instruction which sets condition codes. It may set this flag, it may set that flag. So you basically exhaustively write programs which will exercise all the instructions. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So in our case, for example, in the Ajit processor case, we had over 400 tests. 400 different tests for checking out the different instructions and capabilities of the model. And now once you have those tests, you can keep applying them at various levels. As you get more and more detailed designs done, you can keep using the same tests, or you can keep adding tests also, which we do.
Participants, any other person has any doubts? You can even put it on the chat window also if you are unable to speak. Sir, one more person is asking, sir, are there any research papers on this work?
The research papers, we have not yet written too much. We will be writing them. We were too busy building it. So next couple of years, I'll write some papers.
Sir, shall I share your Ajit GitHub link to them in the chat window?
Yeah, you can. I think Saurabh is familiar with it. You can share that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, sir. We can do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Still we have a Q&A session. So if you have any doubt on the previous session where Saurabh and Ashutosh were showing the GHDL, you can ask them. I think, Saurabh, if you can just take up some of the doubts which they had asked, then I think it may be useful for them. If you recollect some of them, you can just go ahead. We have still 10 more minutes.
Okay, yeah. So if you, yeah, to
Yeah,
all the
there is all
participants.
the demo video. How does the C program got linked with the logic design? There is a, I think it is regarding Ashutosh's talk. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Ashutosh, okay, I think Ashutosh has gone offline. So the C program gets linked with the logic design such that there is a helper function that we have written, which links the C program, the executable that he showed, the hex file. It is converted into a text file. We extract some information in it, and we link it together with the VHDL model, and we create a shared object. So that's how the linking happens, that the user program gets linked with the digital design using a shared library.
So another question is, so is there any requirement of other software for this linking? There are some doubts in the chat box.
Yeah, yeah. So did you hear about the linked library section I explained, Ashutosh? Or was I offline during that time? Okay, I don't think he heard that. So Ashutosh, what we do is the C program that Ashutosh Jha was showing earlier, we compile that program using the AVR GCC toolchain. Using the compiler, we compile that program, we produce an executable, and the executable data that is stored in the hex file, we extract that information and we link that data with the VHDL model in form of a shared library. So that's how the utility model that he was telling you about. If you recall his presentation, there was a utility model in between which was linking the VHDL and the C. So this takes care of that part, to linking these two together with the help of shared libraries. Is your doubt clear, Ashutosh? I'll move on to the Ms. Shri Ranjani.
Hello, Saurabh. There is another doubt. Where to write
to
the
write?
program for micro?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So, Ms. Ranjani, so the thing is, when you write the program anywhere you want in your, you can write the program in your system. You compile it using the AVR GCC toolchain. So, since the controller we are using is from the AVR family, so that's why we have compatible toolchain to compile the code to produce its executable to the end. So we compile this and then we extract a hex file. We have written a small module for it. There is actually a README. Let me, to continue answering Ms. Ranjani's question. So we write that program, compile it, and after compiling, we just paste the hex file into the DUT folder. So design under test. So whenever the microcontroller module is uploaded, we just paste the hex file in that particular folder, and when the script runs, it automatically links them together. Are there any more questions?
Sir, any video available to write program, how to write programming?
I'm sorry?
Any videos available to write, how to write coding for microcontroller and how to link?
I mean, you are talking about for eSIM or in general?
Microcontroller in eSIM.
Achha, eSIM. So we do not have any material for writing that, but we have a GitHub page where we have documented all of this. So I can share that with you. I can share the documentation with you.
Okay.
Yeah, just a minute. I've posted some few links in the chat, which were about the Ajit processor. So I have pasted the link for the tool and one for the. There's an article that was about the that was about this processor. As for the guideline that I'm saying, I'm just trying to locate this documentation that we have.
Okay. Okay.
So I have just pasted a link here. It's a GitHub link that redirects to a PDF. So this is the PDF that this is a document that Ashutosh has written about the microcontroller documentation. So all the information that you need regarding microcontroller simulation in eSIM is pretty much in this document. You can have a look. You can breeze through it, look into detail. If you have any questions, you can definitely ask. And one more link I have pasted. This is a channel, eYantra channel. This is from the eYantra project in IIT Bombay. They had hosted Professor Desai for a talk. So it's a good 1.5 hour something session followed by Q&A. You can watch that too if you're interested about that work.
So are there any other doubts from the participants? More tutorials for eSIM other than 11. Okay. So we actually are thinking, Saurabh, our NGHDL are in the pipeline, right? The tutorials, spoken tutorials, they are asking more tutorials when it will be coming.
Yeah. So there are some in the pipeline. When it is, you can keep checking our website for more details.
So the next topics which will be covered will be NGHDL, right? Or anything?
Yeah. The next topics will be regarding mixed signal simulation and microcontroller simulations.
I would also want you to fill the feedback form. There we have given columns. Okay.
So, sir, we have not yet shared it with them, so they are preparing it. So I think
it'll be made available soon.
Yeah, soon. Yeah.
In the feedback form, there are questions that you can indicate. Say that you want spoken tutorials, things like that. If you like it, you please mention it there. That is something that we want to know. What is it you want us to do? Okay. If you find spoken tutorials to be useful, certainly please do that. Thank you.
And if you have some specific topics also in your mind under eSIM which you think that it will be useful for others also, then please mention that also in the feedback form. So if there are no more questions, let us move to the next session.